and then we will just roll with it, okay?
All right.
All right, here we go. Okay, here we go. 3, 2, 1.
Boom, and welcome to the Big Honker Podcast, brought to you by Lucky Duck. I'm Jeff Stanfield with the world-famous Andy Shaver.
Lucky Duck, huh?
Yes.
That's the way to go.
Get them spinners going and be in them A-frames.
We did it.
With us today, we've got a living legend. He's 77 years old. He grew up hunting around the crab orchard. Mr. Bruce Horrell. Bruce, how are you doing, sir?
Hey, I'm doing fine. Good to talk to you guys.
Now, where are you at right now? You're off. Are you hunting with SEMO right now?
I'm sitting by the grain bins because that's the best reception they have. I'm watching thousands and thousands of ducks that we can't shoot because this zone is closed. I'm seeing thousands and thousands of snow geese, which we can hunt. And they tried yesterday, and those snow geese have gotten way smart compared to way back in the 60s.
Now, whenever you started hunting and, whenever you started chasing these snow geese, would they act right most of the time, or were they still kind of finicky every once in a while?
Okay. The first time I hunted snow geese would be 1963.
Wow.
I did my undergraduate work at Northwest Missouri, 15 miles from Squaw Creek.
Okay.
So I was a freshman, sophomore, and in spite of Squaw Creek, I did graduate. and I will tell you how easy it was. I was a college athlete, and my scholarship job was a counselor in the dorm, and I would raid the linen closet, and a bunch of my fraternity, I didn't live in the house, but a bunch of my fraternity brothers that were hunters, we would cut up square pieces of sheets that we stole from Northwest Missouri, and we'd go down after the corn was combined. We'd put these square pieces of sheet, maybe 200-300 of them on each stalk, and we would hunt them and smash them. And at that time, the limit was 5.
5.
So 5, yes. And that was it. That would be, I would say, I went there in 63. So I'm saying I was actually hunting them in 65, 66, 67.
Right.
So the limit was 5. Squaw Creek was a major, there were a lot of snow geese, and I'd never, being from Southern Illinois, I didn't even know what a snow goose was, but a lot of my fraternity brothers were. They knew what it was all about, but I was more of a waterfowl hunter than they were, but they knew where it was. One of my fraternity brothers, his dad was the manager of two clubs at Squaw Creek, and we'd sneak onto those 2 clubs when nobody was there. And in those days, the limit was 5, and I guess I can tell you this: the what do you call it? The
statute of limitations.
Statute of limitations is over. But let me tell you, back in those days, the feds were still around Squaw Creek. Now, Squaw Creek, and I'm probably politically incorrect because I guess Fred Ramsey told me they've changed the name of it because that was a bad thing to call it. And I can't tell you what it's called now. But at any rate, one day, 4 of us, we were in a little white Nova, whatever, and we killed 34 snows and blues, and we were stashing them everywhere, to try to get out of there when we could, and we kind of knew our way around, so we were stashing them. And we came up onto a father and son, and they were standing next to maybe 5,000-6,000 snow geese. And we got out of it. We were done. we were trying to get out of there. We were done. We got out of the car, and Joe Zimbles, who was a tackle on the football team, he was there, 6'5", 260, big dude. And the father said, "Is this private land?" And we said, "No." He said, "Well, we're 10 feet from these geese." He said, "You mean we could shoot these geese?" And we said, "Yeah." And these geese had just arrived. They had just arrived. And I don't know how, they were tired, I guess, but they weren't. They were just sitting there. And the dad said, "Well, son, go ahead, shoot them." And the son was really afraid. He didn't want. He said, "You mean," he had a 410 single barrel. Finally, Joe says, "You want me to shoot a goose for you?" And he goes, "Yep." So Joe pulled up and he shot one snow goose. Those things walked away.
Really?
They were so tired. And the kid walked over, got a snow goose, and he was just as happy as he could be. But back in those days, they were really stupid. And you could trick them with anything. But I now do not like hunting snow geese, because when the snow geese get up in the morning, they have no plan.
No.
They just, we can pattern our Canadas, but snows, you can't pattern them. And we've tried filming them before. And actually, when people call us at Wolf Creek to do a snow goose hunt, we just kind of politely say no.
So this would have been in the early 60s, I'm assuming. Is that correct?
1965, 66, 67, yeah.
So
late 60s.
Back then, the snow goose limit was 5. How?
Yes.
Let's talk about the Canada goose deal, because back then, what was the Canada goose limit? 2 or 1?
The Canada goose limit was 2. Now I'm back to Southern Illinois, and now I'm back in the late 50s when I started, and the early 60s. It was 2, but Southern Illinois did not become the goose capital of the world back in the 50s and the 60s. All the main bunch of geese were down at Horseshoe, and some in Union, and then they kept coming from Horicon up in Wisconsin. They would stage in Horicon, and then they finally would make their way into Crab Orchard, which at the time was the largest federal wildlife refuge in the country, 200,000 acres or something like that. But when I started, if you could kill a goose, when I was just 8, 9 years old, boy, that was a kind of a trophy around crab. My grandpa took me to Horseshoe, and we killed one goose one time. And down there they were using, we call them shadows. Mm-hmm. Now, I heard I'm also sponsored by Lucky Duck, and I love them. And I've told them Tim Noah's become a pretty good friend. But and a couple years ago, he came out with, quote, silhouettes. Mm-hmm. Well, those were shadows to me. In other words, when we started, my dad had a template, and he had me cut them out on a jigsaw, and we painted them all black with some white tips on the tail, a little white patch on the head, and we stuck them in the ground. And that we called them shadows.
Right.
And when Tim came out with what he came out with, they came out supposedly as silhouettes, but I would have considered them shadows.
Did you?
The silhouettes now are feathered and like that.
Yes. Did you know Charlie Sullivan when you were hunting?
Yes, I knew of Charlie, and I know Brian, and Brian is the reason. And I guess you guys probably know Donnie Hall.
Yeah, Brian and Matt both worked for me 25 years ago.
Okay, Brian was the guy that called Wolf Creek, and I knew who Charlie Sullivan was, and because he had won the world mouth calling. I'll give you a bit of trivia. If you know that Charlie Sullivan won the world mouth calling contest, do you know who won it the very next year?
I'm assuming you did.
No.
Oh, let me guess.
Tim Grounds.
No, Tim Grounds is dad. I don't have a clue.
No. Tim Grounds is too young.
I said his dad. I'm trying to think of someone older.
No.
I wouldn't have a clue.
Mark Higdon.
I'll be damned.
Okay.
Of Higdon Decoys.
Yeah. No shit, huh?
Mark lost to Charlie the year Charlie won it, and Mark Higdon won it the next year. And Mark and I have hunted together, and here's another, this is more recent. Mark, unless he's passed away in the last 2 years, Mark has had 2 brain aneurysms and lived.
How the hell do you do that?
I don't know how you do it. And when I called him, just as happy as he can be to hear from me, he turned it over to John and Ben, and obviously, Higdon Decoys is on the upswing. So
I didn't know that. Yeah, I always thought that a brain aneurysm was like a death sentence. I don't know anybody that's ever lived.
That's what I've always been told, and I heard that he had one, and he was in a coma, and then next thing I know, I get a phone call from him, and I said, Jesus, man, oh man, that's really good. I said, you must be living on the right side of the man upstairs. And sure enough, a year later, he had another one.
Jeez.
And he's really a good guy. He's really laid back. John is more like him. John Higdon is his son. I've known the 2 sons for, since they were pretty young. So
you know what's interesting? You had mentioned the way that y'all hunted snow geese back in the 60s, and it's funny because there was an old farmer out here, and I was talking to him one day, and some other farmers, not the guy I was talking to, had planted some winter wheat, and they had flags, white flags on like picket fences, and they drove them all in that wheat field. And he said it's funny that they are using those flags to keep the geese off of their fields. Back when I hunted a long time ago, we would use white rags to hunt under. And now they're using white rags to try to keep them off of their wheat. So it's interesting how we have what we used a long time ago that would attract geese. Now, all of a sudden, guys use to keep them out of their wheat fields.
I'll be darned. No, I have not heard that. Grounds used to just plant a black flag. He had a little black flag holder in his pit, and he just let that thing wave all the time. And then, but when Grounds and I were friends, Hunter was just he just won he'd won his 5 championships, and between the 2 of them they had 10. And Grounds told me, and then I filmed a show, and we filmed Hunter up in Ohio, and both of them, and this was, and we've got it on video today, still today, if you look on My Outdoor TV and look for the oh geez, now the my old show. Gee,
Which was Gundog
I
or
can't
what?
even think. No,
American
we were
Bird Hunter.
no American. We are now. By the I hate to get off the
Wing shooter.
the wing shooter. There's an episode with Hunter Grounds. Okay, two things about that episode. We had all heard that Hunter Grounds was cocky and had a real wild mouth and all this kind of stuff. And he couldn't have been a nicer kid. He was probably 20 years old at that time, quiet, very unassuming. And he couldn't have been better, but we got him on video of saying, or on video at that time, on tape of saying the same thing that his dad did. If he was going to leave two things behind, his call or his flag, he would leave his calls at home.
Yeah. Yep.
And if you want, if you want to see him say that, it's on, and I can't remember the name of the episode, but it'd be on the wing shooter. And it was the year that we did 10 or 12 wing shooters that they never aired, but they put them on My Outdoor TV. It was the very end of it. And it was one of those. And yeah, those guys, you know, they got 10 world calling championships, and both of them swore that that they would leave their calls home versus a flag. The second thing about that show was Tim called me after he got to see the show, crying.
Really?
Literally crying, saying, Bruce, because we had pictures of, you know, still pictures of Hunter when he was a little kid that Tim had provided, and then pictures of him, you know, competing and like that. And the show basically turned into a show about Hunter Grounds because the hunting in Ohio was terrible. So, but he called and he was just raving about the show, and he literally was crying. Tim was a pretty emotional guy. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if, you know, if you say it's uncensored, I don't know if he was, you know, under the influence when he was talking to me, but he literally was crying on how happy he was with that show.
I got a few questions for you.
Okay.
I was thinking about this. I'm 54 years old. I've been hunting waterfowl since I've been 6 years old. And I've got to hunt a lot of waterfowl. I've spent a lot of days in the field when I was younger. Now I don't. I'm just in the office or in my truck all the time running this place. But my question is, I think as a kid growing up in the early 70s, we shot ducks. And me, my dad, and my brother would shoot a lot of ducks. We'd have a lot of days we'd kill 20 to 30 ducks. And we had some days we shot a whole lot more. But there was not the pressure. Even though we had more hunters back then, people did not kill big stacks of ducks like you see today. You never heard of anybody killing 100 birds. And that's a very common deal now with a lot of people. Do you think that we are killing too many birds these days and we're too good at hunters?
A little bit of both. I will say, and I've said this before, the good old days are now. If you're talking about the number of birds, and you can give that credit to whoever you want to give it to, you know, the biologists that have, you know, that have brought some species back, and, you know, and whatever, how they've regulated it. I don't know. They just raised our goose limit. We used to, in Michigan, from 2 to 3, now to 5 for the entire season. Our guys that hunt with me, we would have been happy with 3,
right?
And happy to stay with 3. because there's going to be guys out there trying to stay there all day, educating birds, trying to kill if they got 25 instead of 15. And this is not a total knock on some of our Michigan hunters, but some of our Michigan hunters, they educate more than they harvest.
Yeah.
So I think I personally would like to see lower limits. Somebody told me who in the world was it? Oh, maybe even Kyle told me that Texas is thinking about cutting back on the snow goose thing, because the only time I've hunted Texas, I've hunted Rockport, Eagle Lake, and then what is it, Spread Oaks up around El Campo.
Mm-hmm.
And Eagle Lake used to have a bunch of snow geese, and now they don't. Is that true that Texas is going to?
I think that they've
dial back.
I think they're going to cut it to nothing. I think they're going to do away with the spring conservation season down there. They don't hold geese like they used to. I mean, they don't. It's all housing developments now, and there's not much rice. But it's not like the snow goose hunting was in the '80s down there. And yes, I believe they are doing away with it. This is what I heard, and I do not know if this is true or not, but I heard that in the next 3 to 5 years, they're going to do away with all spring snow goose hunting. I have no idea how true that is.
All over?
The whole everywhere.
Is it just because it has not had the desired results?
Nope. That's exactly what I'm hearing. So I don't know if that's true or not. I know all the spring snow goose guides are going to go crazy, but that is the rumor I heard. In 3 to 5 years, they're going to totally do away with it. So who knows?
And what was the reason for it? Because
it's not.
They said
it's not doing anything to the population.
Never kill enough.
It's just
it's just not doing what they had hoped that it would do. It's not making a dent like they thought it would.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. Because Fred Ramsey, I don't know if you've ever heard of Fred. He used to be on the Outdoor Channel when I first started back in the 90s. And he has a place right there at Squaw Creek. And he sent me a picture last year of 4 truckloads of snow geese. And I think they shot 1,100 or 1,300. And they slip ditched them. Everybody had, those, what do you call it on your shotguns where you can shoot 25 or.
The extended magazine?
Yeah, whatever. And it was right just north of Squaw Creek at there were like 50,000 snows. They slip ditched them. They shot into them, and all the geese got up, and there were so many laying on the water and running around on the water that about 20,000 more came back. And by the way, I'm in an electric. I'm in a hybrid truck, so I don't know if
No, everything sounds good.
Okay, all right. Well, I just got a notification that I was about to shut off. So,
okay.
At any rate, so apparently 20,000 of those geese came back. They shot into them again, and they ended up all day long, and they picked up over 1,100 or 1,300.
Jesus.
And I'm pretty sure I've got the pictures on my phone. I can send them to you. It was 4 truckloads piled up past the cab.
That's a crazy amount of snow geese.
Yeah, and I was just telling Troy here. He's a guide here from Wisconsin,
mm-hmm.
and he's leaving to go start to hunt the snow geese. And there's a little town called Dexter just south of here, and his outfit that he guides for take up. I think they rent this whole motel, and they're getting ready to start hunting the snow geese right now. So, and I just told him these geese are so educated now, and I've heard this statistic, and I don't know you guys, that the average snow goose lives to be 12 years old.
I know it's pretty. I know it's pretty old.
Okay, so if they see, like, when I pull into the lodge last night, there was probably 7,000 or 8,000 snow geese, and they got up. They saw a truck, and I've jumped 2,000 or 3,000 today. I went in and had my breakfast of champions into Advance, a couple of what do you call it? Those breakfast things at McDonald's.
Oh, the Egg McMuffin.
And every time they see a truck coming, man, they've been slip ditched so much that if they see a car coming, they're. I mean, Kyle tried to hunt them last night right here on the farm, and by the way, have him send you the picture. They shot one speck. Specks are still open here, and the goose came down through the pit and impaled on the guy's gum barrel. Went right through it and impaled on the guy's gum barrel.
Is that the only one they shot?
It's the only one they shot.
Wow. Well, at least they tricked him really good.
They didn't shoot any snows.
So I just looked up the average age of a snow goose, and this is saying 16. You can count on anywhere between 15 and 25 years old is average. No wonder you can't kill those fuckers.
See, smart birds.
Yeah, they're extremely smart, and that, like I say, that has really changed since the 50s and the 60s.
So when you started hunting snow geese in the 50s and 60s. And the reason I'm going to ask this is I was in Pennsylvania in the late 90s, and a guy from Maryland was selling snow goose hunts. And their snow geese in the East Coast decoyed just like our small Canadas did. And he told me, he says, it's because nobody pass shoots them over here. All the pass shooting in the Central Flyway has made them smart, and they don't kill anybody. So when you were a kid or when you were a young man and you hunted snows at first, would they decoy just like the Canadas?
Yeah. We had, believe it or not, they had, what's the Haydale snow goose calls?
Mm-hmm.
They had and you could buy them in Maryville or Mound City, and we hunted them the way we normally hunt them, and that's the only way I went with Brad. I don't know if you guys know who Brad Harris is. He's a good friend of Zink's. He's in southeast Kansas around Pittsburgh, and he called me one time, and we spend our winters down in Alabama, and I came up, and we were going to hunt them right, so I was okay as long as we're hunting them over decoys. Well, it was a bunch of young guys, and they tried hunting them over decoys, not doing very good, and then they decided they wanted to slip ditch, and I'm way past that. Unless I can hunt them over decoys, I'm not hunting them.
Right.
I'm not crawling on my belly anymore. I'm not, stalking. I'm not doing anything like that. Shane's boys, the younger one, they slip ditch all the time around here.
Well, and I mean, there's no, the way I understand, the way you want to do it. You want to have the geese put on a show, and you want to work for them and everything else. Whenever you're slip ditching them, you're just you're in it for the trigger pull more than anything.
I'm going to tell you, the last thing I remember, and I have a whole bunch of witnesses, is I literally forget my gun once a year or twice. Mm-hmm. Somebody, I was watching. Oh, Jesus, Kelly Powers the other day. He said, I forgot my dog. And I'm going, how do you forget your dog? Well, comes to find out he's got this blind he made up that floats, it's portable and everything, and I don't think he had a place for the dog to work out of.
Right.
I forgot my dog the other day.
You forgot your dog?
Well,
yeah.
Well, Jeff's not hunting. Jeff's coming to the office.
I left my dog. I left here the other night about 8:30, and I went and put Ollie in my truck. And I've got a Suburban also. And a guy called me when I put him in the truck, went inside, did some more stuff, Michelle got in her car. I followed her home. Walked out the door, and the guy called me on the phone. I'm talking to him. I jump in the Suburban. I get halfway home. I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? I left Ollie. My dog was sitting in my fucking truck back at the lodge. I drive back to the lodge, get my truck to go home. So it happens.
Well,
PETA's going to get you, Jeff.
You
Yep.
mean I don't forget my dog, but I'll forget my gun, and there was something I forgot chairs for the Lucky Duck one day.
Oh no.
That's miserable.
Those guys, I ran home. Those guys set up the Lucky Ducks, and then I came back with the chairs, but I do it for the birds, the dog, the calling. Once I trick them, then the fun's over.
Right.
For me.
Yeah.
Once they're in there. Now I used to hunt in Southern Illinois up around Campbell Pond. It's north of Carbondale, and I've still got. They actually come and hunt with me in Michigan because they don't have any honkers anymore, and those guys. And now I lost. Now is where it sucks to be 77. Okay, so
I want to switch
I lost
gears.
my train of thought.
You're good. I want to switch gears real quick. So you're a big golfer. How do you feel about the now I can't think of it. The Saudi Arabia stuff that's going on. Guys are leaving the PGA Tour and going over. What's it called, Jeff?
The LIV.
LIV. I was going to say NIL, but that's not
LIV
it.
live.
Yep.
Oh, don't. You don't want me to get off on that little subject.
Why not?
We want your opinion.
I want your opinion on it.
First of all, I am a golf professional.
Yes.
And I am not a professional golfer.
Right.
I am a golf professional.
Correct.
So there's a difference. And in other words, I consider Zink a professional waterfowler. I consider Sean a professional waterfowler. I am a waterfowl professional. I make a living, but by the way, you can't make a living on what I do on television. So, but I make some income from the waterfowl industry,
right?
Being on television like that. But I don't make my living strictly with waterfowl, and so there's a difference. And back to the golf. I guess you can say that these guys thought they were being underpaid and everything, but I am I hate Greg. I hate Greg Norman now. He got blitzed quite a few years ago by the then commissioner of the PGA. He wanted to start this world tour, and the PGA just dwarfed him. And he's had a burr up his saddle for ever since the early 90s. And now he's getting back. And those guys are just disappearing. There were some golfers that, they got huge money to go over there. So they're set for life. They're going to get paid. They don't have to worry about it. So I'm still a PGA guy. So as far as them getting paid, and that's their business, and I guess everybody agrees with that. But as far as good flat golf competition, those guys don't have to practice anymore.
Right.
They just have to go out like you and me and say, boy, I hope I hit it good this week. I'll make a few, and I've seen some clips of what goes on. There's loud music. It's a shotgun start. It's just not a golf tournament, and it's 3 days long. I just don't like it. And go ahead.
I've got a mutual friend of Greg Norman's, a real good friend of mine, is a real good friend of Greg's, and he told me 15 years ago that Greg would go to Saudi Arabia, he would play in Switzerland and go to these big deals because they would write him a check for $1 million just to show up. And I don't
all those guys. Yeah.
And that's the appearance fees, and that's what the Saudis are doing. And I don't. Here's my thing. I think the golf deal's not near as bad as the NIL is in college football, but I also understand that it has diluted the player pool for PGA events now because you got a third of the guys are playing overseas or whatever it is in this LIV or wherever, and they're playing some American courses. But I don't blame the guys for wanting to get paid just to show up. But 15 years ago, Norman was dealing with this 15 years ago because I was told this a long, long time ago before any of this ever come about.
So like he was saying, Greg had been scheming for a while.
Greg had been wanting to go, because he would go over and play in Abu Dhabi, and they would go to Saudi Arabia and play, and they'd write him a check, and Tiger would too. They'd write him a check for $1 million or $3 million just to show up.
All of those guys got show up pay.
Yes,
every one of them. By the way, I am now looking at, I'll get right back to you because I am now looking at least. I would say 15,000 snow geese that just got up off a field right behind Shane's. Probably 15,000.
That's a lot of birds.
And 14,900 are unhuntable.
Holy shit.
How many? I've always wondered how many bands do you think are in there? 14,000.
10.
I'm gonna go over. I'm gonna say 36.
Well, we can't count them.
How many what?
How many bands do you think are in that? I say one for every 1,000 bird.
You're going to have to say that again.
How many banded birds do you think are in that flock of 15,000 birds? I say they have one band for every 1,000 birds will be one band, I think, by average.
Yeah.
I'm taking the over.
These birds are actually they got up off the field and they're actually going to sit on Shane's water. Shane does one thing that a lot of the guys don't do. As soon as the season is over, they drain their field.
Mm-hmm.
And Shane leaves water on all of his stuff. This property here alone is like a 900 or 1,100 acres. And when I first got here, there was one pit, and now there's 14. But so he's got a lot of water. So he leaves water until the last bird is migrated, and then he drains it, and then he farms it. That's
really good. You know what's crazy about that is you talked about those 15,000 birds. Those 15,000 birds are going to go in one flock to everything they do.
Right.
One group.
Yep.
And that's another thing that makes them so hard to hunt.
It might only, when I'm looking at, I say 15,000. Maybe I'm not very good at that. It might only be like 10,000.
But it's a bunch.
It's a bunch.
Who cares when you're talking about that many birds?
Right. It's a wad.
Yeah.
It's a wad. Well, if it's only 10,000, and then I retract how many bands I said were in it.
Okay.
Going down to 18.
Yeah. Back to your golf thing. Yes, those guys, all of the Americans that used to go to South Africa and play, they all got show up money, and what it did. And maybe you know this or don't know this, it ruined the tennis, the pro tennis circuit, because guys would show up and get paid and not care.
Right.
And they would get paid, and then next thing you know, whoever watches tennis anymore? I mean, you might watch Wimbledon or the U.S. Open or something like that. Tennis used to be fairly big at one time, and show-up pay ruined the pro tennis tour, and show-up pay would ruin PGA golf, competitive golf.
Well,
in other words, when those guys got their check for $1 million,
right? They don't care.
They showed up and they played as good as they could play that day or that week, but they were still practicing, by the way, back in those days, because they still were on the PGA Tour, and unless you practice, you would fall behind. Right. So these guys that are on the PGA Tour now, are grinding, and maybe Mickelson and Norman taught the new commissioner a lesson, because he instantly is making those guys. They're playing for way that little tournament of champions. It was a $15 million purse.
Wow.
So second place got $1.75 million or something like that. Over there. So
what golf needs, golf, tennis was back in the 80s, 70s, and 80s. You had Jimmy Connors and John McEnroe, and John McEnroe was an asshole, but everybody watched because he was such a brat, and they watched because they wanted to see.
So was Connors, by the way.
Right, but people like that because they saw that there was a lot of emotion to it. You watch. I haven't watched a tennis match in 20 freaking years, and I don't want to watch a tennis match. But it's two guys, two blue blood snobs hitting the ball back and forth, and nobody argues. And I want to see somebody throw a racket and cuss and bitch and get in trouble. That's what I want to watch. Golf needs John Daly's. They need a regular guy that people can relate to.
That's right. And you're right. And I won't argue that with you. But if you want my Jimmy Connors story,
sure.
Yeah.
I was a nationally ranked tennis player.
God dang.
And you played college football?
No, I played college tennis. I actually went up there trying to play college basketball. And if you see me, I'm only 5'7", but I could flat shoot the ball. But I had white man's disease at that time.
Right.
So, oh boy, cut that, I guess.
You're good.
So,
you're good.
I was going to say something really funny. Small penis and can't jump.
Yeah, small dick and you can't jump very high.
So at any rate, but I could shoot it. But back to, my college career, there was a guy same height as me, and he couldn't shoot with me. But when I tried to actually guard him, I got a good look at his back. So my college career, basketball ended, but they let me keep my tennis scholarship. But when in 1960, 61 and 60 and 61, I had a national ranking, boys and juniors. Well, Jimmy and Johnny Connors were from Belleville, or right around St. Louis on the Illinois side, and they were a year apart, and they were both good. One was 8, one was 7. And their mother and grandmother made them play at every division. They played the 10 and under, the 15 and under, and the 18 and under. That's all they had back in those days. It's not, now it's like 10, 12, 14, I don't know what it all is. And so I was always the first seed in the 15s and under, and I drew Jimmy Connors twice. So I either get a bye being the first seed, or I get a rum dum. Well, I drew Jimmy twice. And I would love to be able to go into a stadium someplace and walk up to Jimmy and tell Jimmy, I'm the only guy in this stadium that ever beat you twice 0-0, because I did it. And believe it or not, and so the Paul Harvey of that story is I was 15 and Jimmy was 7.
7?
Yeah. No, Jimmy was 7. And Johnny, by the way, was better. But Johnny couldn't stand to get his ass kicked, and he quit. And Jimmy, it just made Jimmy mad. And Steve Wilkinson, who was number 1 on University of Iowa's tennis team, drew Jimmy one time, and Jimmy got 3 games. And I mean, we ribbed Steve Wilkinson so bad because he gave up 3 games to Jimmy. But so I have beat Jimmy Connors twice, and both times 0-0. Okay.
he's a small guy too.
I'll tell you what, this podcast goes from here to there.
Well, that's okay. I mean, most conversations kind of go here to there.
There you go. I like it.
I mean, I don't.
We're not just a waterfowl podcast.
No.
We do this.
I like
what
to.
we do.
Yeah, this is kind of typical for how we do things. So
Okay.
this is
All right.
perfect. It's going great, I think. Jimmy Connors, he's a small guy too. He's only, it says 5'9" here, 5'10".
Yeah, he's a little guy, but boy, he had a temper, and it made him so mad when he didn't care who beat him, but it turned out that that temper of his, he was able to channel into how many U.S. Opens and how many Wimbledons and what maybe he didn't win as many as Borg, but Jimmy is a very wealthy dude now, and Borg and a couple of those guys are bankrupt and have been in jail and all that kind of stuff. So Jimmy's done very, very well.
But see, tennis was,
and so is McEnroe, by the way.
Yes.
Tennis was such a different thing back then because we didn't have everything on TV, so you watched on a Saturday the Wimbledon or whatever. So you got to watch these players. Like I said, I hadn't watched tennis in 20 years, but I remember watching McEnroe.
I watched Serena's last.
Connors.
Wasn't it Serena?
Yeah,
She played
I
last
did
year.
see that because ESPN broke through and showed her last deal. But that's, we just don't watch it, and that's with golf. I think I love to watch golf when John Daly's talking or doing something because he's interesting.
Yeah.
And he's so different than the other golfers, and I enjoy that.
Yep.
And
I wish he looks like Santa Claus now.
Oh, he
Well,
does.
he does, doesn't he? What do you think about John Daly?
Did you see him in that? I like John Daly. Did you see him in that father son? His kid is friggin' good, boy.
He is, and so is Tiger's son.
Yeah, because him and Tiger's son, they squared off, didn't they?
Yeah, John's son's older though.
Yeah, Tiger's kid is now 11 or 12 or something like that, and he made a big splash the first year. I guess this year I was hunting or I was doing something and I couldn't watch much of it, but I guess both of them were limping. Tiger got it because I love to watch Tiger too, and Tiger, he's a different guy. A lot of people hate Tiger because he was such a jerk. But to your point, that he's not your paper cutter guy. Like now, one of your Texas guy, I am a huge Spieth fan, and if you're in golf, there's such a thing as afraid to go low. In other words, guys start really getting it going, and then all of a sudden they're 2 or 3 under, and oh God, when's the wheel? Some guys are not afraid to go low. I mean, if they're 3 under, they're going to try to go 6 under. I mean, they're just going to keep it going. Spieth is afraid to win.
Is that
and I just and you have to watch him, and I love the guy. I literally love him, but you have to watch him, and he'll go up. And the most recent, I just told it to I still play with a bunch of pros down in Gulf Shores, and he'll get toward the lead, and in the Tournament of Champions, he was 1 shot off the lead, and you never saw him again. And then at the Hawaiian Open, he was in the lead after the first day and then missed the cut the second day.
Right.
I mean, he gets right up there, and then he's afraid to win. And until he addresses that head deal, I'm not sure, because all of his technical stuff, he seems to be hitting the ball just fine. And until it's time to get in the lead. When he tries to get too close to the lead, then he starts to choke.
So what can happen? Do you think he can go to like a sports psychologist and work some of these things out?
I got to believe he's doing it. He's got to be doing it. Because he does some of the dumbest things, and he goes back to his caddy laughing and trying not to get too serious about it. He should be pissed off when he screws up like that, but I don't know.
Well,
I just I have no idea. But if you watch him close, anytime he gets up toward the lead, and the times he does get up toward the lead and wins is when he's had help.
Right.
He won't be shooting like Justin Thomas, JT. If JT's in the lead and he's got a 5-shot lead, look out. It's going to be a 10-shot lead before you know it. Spieth is the other way. Spieth needs help every time he seems to win. So, in other words, guys will start bogeying.
They'll choke around him.
Yeah. So,
but what about because a lot of people say that if John Daly would have applied himself more, he probably could have achieved more. Do you see that also and think, well, like damn it, son, just get serious about this for a couple years?
He had the drinking problem. He had a little bit of gambling problem, but I think all that's squared away. His swing is so long, and I can't believe that he can continue to hit the ball the way he does, because the longer the swing, the more margin for error, and the shorter the swing, the more compact, the less margin for error there is. And he has this, and maybe he doesn't, because his putting stroke I used to love too. I mean, it's just smooth and just a real tempo type putting stroke. I just think maybe to your point, the sideshow got too much for him, or he spent too much time on the sideshow, not worrying too much about golf.
Right.
I don't know. He's a great talent, and he's got a lot of fans, and I'm one of them.
Yeah.
So
no, I mean, he's a great guy to root for. He's a lot of fun to watch, and like if a camera's in front of his face, that you're going to get a fun little soundbite. What's interesting to me about John Daly is he seems to have avoided all the injuries, and Tiger's been plagued with a bad back and bad knees. And John Daly, I mean, there's got to be something to this hard living.
Diet Coke, alcohol, and M&Ms and smokes.
He's missed out on the injuries that Tiger's gotten. And Tiger, he was a workout freak and did everything technical by the book. And you got John Daly, who, was in the clubhouse until 2 a.m. before he teed off. And, he's a picture of health.
The best thing about John Daly's swing, and the worst thing about his swing, is his tempo. He has great tempo. And if that tempo is off slightly, he doesn't have a reverse C, which is just a reverse pivot, which is really bad for the back. And they're learning to teach, the golf swing so that you don't have that. But those guys, there's also a temperament thing. You may think that Spieth is the nicest guy, or JT is the nicest guy. I've actually caddied inside the ropes at a PGA Tour event. I literally did it one time. And I'm telling you what, those guys think, and they, generally speaking, they want to beat your brains out. They are quietly cocky. They're mean. They want to put your head on the ground and step on it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't show that way. And Daly, I don't think Daly really cared about, believe it or not, I don't think he was mean enough in some respects. He might act like it, but I'll tell you what, those guys, they also, at least when I caddied back in, I'm trying to think, it was right after graduate school, 73, I caddied for a guy you've never heard of, but I caddied in the same group with Dave Stockton, in the same group of Lee Elder, and the guy I caddied for was Bobby Smith, and you're saying, who's he? But that's okay. but he made the cut, and he got a check for playing all 4 days. It was St. Louis Golf Classic. One of my buddies was a pro.
What percent do you get as a caddy?
Back in those days, he gave me $50 a day. He gave me $200 when I was done. Now that was I just finished grad school. So that had to be 1972 or 3. and he gave me $50 a day, and he gave me 2 dozen golf balls. That was it. So there is no, there's no such thing as a percentage back in those days.
Right, but now there is, isn't there? Isn't it like 20% or something like that?
Yes. Bones, I think Bones is a millionaire for Mickelson. What's his name now? He used to be with Tiger, and then he went with what's his
Joe
name?
LaCava?
The guy now is, he used to be with, and then he went with Couples, and now LaCava is with who? Oh, he's back to Tiger.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Well, LaCava's a millionaire, and
how do you break into that caddy game? I mean, because it seems like a very small fraternity of people.
You know what? I was a pretty good golfer, and my guy offered to have me go on tour. Well, I was a teacher and a coach, and in my first go around, but I've been retired since 1999.
Right.
I mean, from my day job. So golf, I turned pro when I was 48 years old. I passed my PAT, got in the PGA program, and so the PGA and TV all happened before or late in life for me. I mean, when I was taking my P, everybody I was playing against was 21 years old.
Right.
But they were choking their ass off. And I was 48 years old, and everybody played from the same tees. We're only allowed 10 shots in 36 holes, and I won it. I shot 2 under, or 2 over and 2 under. I shot even, and 4 out of 80 guys made it. And it was kind of a hard deal. Now they've even changed the PAT stuff, but
Steve Williams.
What was the question?
Steve Williams was Tiger's that was his caddy from 99 to 2011.
They don't even speak anymore.
He's also a multimillionaire now too.
He was also a caddy for Greg Norman in 82 to 89. So yes. he's got some. But that's what I'm saying. Like, how did Steve get to where he is to where he's the guy that the best turn to?
You get just a break.
I think those guys, believe it or not, I think, and you might have to check, but Steve Williams, I don't know about. Bones could actually play golf.
Right.
Okay. And I could, when the guy offered me, I could actually play golf. I was, do you remember Bob Murphy, the Watermelon Man? I don't know if you, nope, you probably don't.
No.
If you're in your 50s, you probably wouldn't. He did a lot of, he was a commentator for NBC for years. But at any rate, he told me that I was caddying for the straightest shooter on the PGA Tour. And I've never heard of him. He said, well, you'll see why. Well, if I would have for him, he would have won the tournament. But he couldn't putt. But I was a pretty good player. I think you have to know some golf. I don't think there's any caddies out there that don't know a whole lot about golf, and actually at one time or another was a pretty good golfer.
Right.
I'm pretty sure Spieth's guy was a fairly good amateur golfer, and
I'd also,
I was good.
I would think that as a caddy, as a caddy, you're always kind of walking a tightrope, because what the fuck are you going to tell Tiger Woods? I mean, he knows what he's got to do.
He goes to a swing coach.
Just hand me my club and shut up is what Tiger, I think, would say.
But he goes to Hank. Is it Hank Haney? Is that his swing coach?
Oh, yeah. What? Oh, years and years ago, Tiger was the very last guy that Hank had, and Hank got the reputation of ruining X amount of pro golfers' careers, and I liked the way he taught, because he didn't want. What he did was, okay, I'll make you score with what you've got,
Right.
and I thought that was a pretty good way to teach. In other words, but that apparently didn't go over with most guys, and it didn't go over with Tiger. And then I remember when Hank came out and said, I am done teaching professional golfers. And then he was also a multimillionaire by that time too. So
yeah, hard to feel bad for
but
guys
yeah,
like
I don't
that.
know. Yeah, I thought Hank Haney was. I kind of liked him, but and I didn't do my teaching after him, but I fixed a lot of guys. So the guy that's out there now, that Adam Schreiber, who was Anthony Kim's coach for years, and he's had a whole bunch of LPGA. Michael Kim, he's had a lot of PGA. He's up in Michigan, and I sent 3 good players to him, of which none of them made it.
Yeah.
And now he only teaches professional. He doesn't teach any amateurs anymore.
So tell me about your current gig. So you're this TV personality. What is it like whenever you go from just your ordinary hunter to now all of a sudden they're putting you they're putting you on all the shows, and you're the face of these waterfowl programs. Is that a weird thing to transition to?
You know what? First of all, again, I'm here because, and I'm kind of proud of it. I've been on the outdoor channels since the 90s.
Yeah.
Late 90s. And I'm not a world champion. I'm a pretty good goose caller, and I'm a pretty good duck caller, but I've never competed. And so the first show I was on, I was just the waterfowl guy, and it was Tim, who by the way now lives in Texas and no longer has a TV show. He's an airline pilot. It was kind of a mom and pop show, but it was on the Outdoor Channel, and I only did a couple shows, and it was not very good. But the when I went to work for Wolf Creek in 2000, and that's how you'd be interested to know how I got into this.
Mm-hmm.
I was watching Donnie Hall and Brian Sullivan at Webfoot Connection, where the general was hunting. And I was done with that first TV show, and I was doing some consulting work for a guy that I guess he was wanted. He ended up being wanted. And what I was going to do consulting, and I did do consulting, and he paid me very well to go up and down the Central and Mississippi Flyway to find property to buy and or lease. And he was going to make it a deal where you could use his whole operation, start in Canada, follow the migration all the way down at areas that he owned. That was the deal. So I see, and he ended up, one of the places was in Squaw Creek, and he ended up leaving there, owing a bunch of people a bunch of money, and he was wanted, and he could never, whatever. But I watched, while I was doing that, I was watching the Outdoor Channel, and I saw the general hunting with Donnie Hall and those guys at Web Connection. And Webfoot Connection, I think it was.
Yeah, that was our competitor for a long time.
Okay, well, at
Same
any
area.
rate, somebody was going to sell, and I think they were. So I called the general. Back in those days, you could call, and we got to be good friends just on the phone. And he was spending his time out in Arizona with Randy Lack. But he'd had a torn rotator cuff and couldn't shoot a shotgun, so he was just spending his winters out there rehabbing. And I ended up talking to him, and all of a sudden in one of the phone calls, he said, Bruce, we're starting a new show called The Wing Shooter. And he said, with all my phone calls, I know that you're going to be one of those guys that will get up in the middle of the night. And I don't want to be one of these guys getting up at the middle of the night, storming the beaches of Normandy. He said, I want to be able, you call me and I'll come and hunt. And I would like for you to do the waterfowl and Randy Lack do the upland game. Fine. And he said, have you got any places? Oh, and by the way, there was a whole bunch of reenactments when I was on North American Fish and Game. I can say that now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you just pretend like.
Right.
Remember when that bird came in and we'd just go and shoot into the air, and then the editors would look like, it was a whole bunch of reenactments. So the general said, do you know any places that you might like we might go and shoot a show? And I said, how about Cape Cod? And he goes, Cape Cod? Yep. And that was it. I took him to Cape Cod. I got on the, first time Tom Nichols and I and the general ever met, we met in Lansing. We flew to Boston, and we went down to Cape Cod with Captain Nichols, and the guy's name was also Nichols, and I had hunted with him because my brother was a dean at Harvard. That's a whole other story. So little brother was a dean at Harvard. So I had gone down there, and I always wanted to shoot greater, the sea duck, the
Scop?
I don't, not greater scalp, greater.
What is it, Jeff?
Those
What are you
old skull
saying?
eider.
Eiders. I'd always wanted to shoot
King
eiders,
eider.
the greater
King
eider, the Atlantic king eider, whatever. So sure enough, I had gone down there one time when Meryl and I were out visiting my brother and my mother at Harvard. So we went, and when we get in the boat, and I'm waiting and the general turns around, and he said, Bruce, here's what's going to happen. We're going to go hunting. I'm finally answering your question, by the way. We're going to go hunting, and Tom is going to turn on the camera, and we're going to hunt. You do whatever you want. It's going to be a hunting trip. Forget about the camera. And by golly, it's been that way ever since. I mean, he makes it so easy for me just to forget that he's even filming. Now, I've been in the business long enough that I kind of set him up on where he'll get the best. I know what he likes, and I can tell him what the wind's going to be. So the birds are probably going to, and it really helps if you're hunting the big geese, because they won't break the rules. But I can really tell you what hole they're going to be in, generally speaking, and he'll know what to do. We can put him in. Then we have, and back in those days, we used to use one camera. Now sometimes we use three. We've used three here several times, mm-hmm. and we use GoPros and all that. And as far as the interviews are concerned, I'll get tongue-tied. And I'll say, Tommy, just put the words in my mouth. I can do it. And he puts the words in my mouth. And it's not while we're hunting. It's the interview part. Right. In the hunting part, I try to just describe the conditions and the one thing I never try not to do is I never try to guide the guide.
Right.
And Shane Gardner is the one guy down here, the one guy that I can come down here and be totally brain dead and not worry that he's screwing anything up, because he's not. He's a really good hunter. He's not a farmer that's got a nice bunch of, property. He was a duck hunter first, and he buys farms that are next in good flyways, close to refuges, like that, and he can set a spread of decoys. I'm so jealous of you guys, especially when you're hunting on water, because you can use those Texas rigs, and Shane uses 1 ounce. He can put out 120 decoys in 10 minutes and pick them up just about that quick. Not so up in Michigan.
Right.
But yes, it really, it wasn't that big of a deal. And then you think, oh boy, here's some geese, and what happens if I miss? They made it so easy for me that I forgot the camera. I'm hunting, and most of the time, guys think I'm a fairly good shot. I'm not exceedingly good shot, but I let them get so close they can't miss. So
it's trick photography.
I mean, and I can tell you this: if you watch TV shows, barrels up, they're not finishing the birds. Barrels down, they're finishing the birds. You just watch. Now you'll see, and you'll see it on us. There's a few times that we can't finish birds and we're having barrels up, and we like to finish them as much as we can.
Right.
And Shane tries to do it, but he's also, a lot of times we're hunting with clients, and I can give you a couple of I can give you one for sure horror story about hunting with a client.
What happened?
And well, we're with you guys know Big Kansas. You know Ben Webster?
Yes.
Or ever heard of Ben?
I know of him. Yes.
Okay.
I've never met him. I know of him. Yes.
Okay. Well, Ben is he's a good hunter. He's not Mr. Personality. I mean, he wouldn't mind me saying this, so you can keep it in there. He's not Mr. Personality, but he's a good hunter. And we don't mind hunting with clients, but we especially want them to hunt with a CZ. We especially would like to use them, have them be using Dakota decoys, to be using a lucky duck blind, that kind of thing. But we hunt with clients, and so we offer them CZ shotguns, and most of the time they take them. And if they don't, we either blur it out or they're not on camera very much. At any rate, so the last time we were in Kansas with Ben, we hunted with some clients. Ben takes us on a crane hunt that Zippo, it was just terrible, but we were with a couple clients. Nice people. We got along just fine. The next day, we're hunting a hedgerow on your little geese. The birds are coming in. I'm just working little Joey. I like I say, I don't need to shoot. I've got the gun. Those guys these guys, little did we know, it was like 3 or 4 dog trainers. And these guys are all out there, and every time, and they can't shoot. Well, we're getting a ton of birds, and each guy is going out separately, bringing their dog to heel, lining them up, and there got to be so many birds out there. Ben's saying, Bruce, you got to start shooting, and we got to pick up those birds. Oh, just let Joey go. Well, I let Joey go, and Joey's just cleaning up the spread. He's a little old British lab. I had Chesapeakes for 41 years. I thought I'd never like a little British lab. And by the way, he's right behind me, sound asleep in the truck. So
how old is Joey?
Joey's 7.
7, okay.
But he's a little British lab, so he's 60 pounds. My Chessies were always 100 pounds plus, big and slow. I love them, but I like this little dog. Anyway, Joey was just cleaning up the spread. Boom, boom, boom. I didn't even have to line him up. There were so many birds out there, he just kept cleaning them up. Well, nobody said anything. The next day, we go out and we're waiting, and Ben did the right thing. We're waiting for all these birds to get up on their own on a roost. And once we rush in there, we're setting up A-frames. And one of these guys says something really derogatory. And Evan, our one of our senior producer, is with me, and Tom is up on the hill getting his camera kind of ready. And I can't quite remember what he said, but it was, and I said, Evan, did I hear what I said? And the guy said, GD right, you did. And we're not letting some BS dog, I'm trying to clean this up, BS dog that you can't control. And he didn't know that Ben told me to let my dog go.
Right.
And and he just, and Tom Nichols is as quiet and as laid back as you've ever seen. And I didn't hardly get a word in edgewise, and Tom came charging down the hill. He said, we're out of here. Yeah. And the guy just went berserk, and Ben was hiding trucks. He wasn't even around. And when he gets back, it was a little bit of a walk. He sees all of us getting everything put away and getting ready to drive off. And I said, Ben, Ben had sent me and called me the night before while we were at supper saying, Bruce, I don't want you to take Joey. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I kind of skipped that. And or don't let Joey retrieve tomorrow. I want you to shoot. Those guys can't shoot. And I said, well, I'll just let them, once they're, as long as he can get one retrieve, that's okay. No, he said, I don't want you to run Joey. Well, we didn't realize that those guys were hopping mad about the day before.
That Joey picked them all up.
Yeah. I mean, and they also didn't know that Ben told me to let Joey go.
Right. They thought that Joey broke, and then you couldn't get him back in.
Yeah. They thought he was out of control.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So,
it's a tricky deal from an outfitter's perspective, because on one side you gotta cater to your clients, but on the other side you got a TV crew there, and it's good publicity to have guys like you out there. So it's a tough tightrope to walk for Ben.
And we don't ask for special treatment.
Right.
We not at all. And that's one reason we're pretty much welcome everywhere we go, because we're pretty laid back. We had another deal. We were filming in Oregon, and just having a heck of a shoot, and out in with D-Day out. He's from California, but we went up to Oregon to hunt, and the guy goes berserk, and even his own son said, Dad, why are we had our limit of Canadas, or we were one shy, and the birds were just, they were working perfect. And I didn't have a dog, but D-Day did. And the guy was just livid that the dog shouldn't have been there. And that's the only time. And after he had his tirade, I said, boy, you are really lucky that Tim Grounds wasn't here or some of these other TV crews, because they would have lit you up, buddy.
Right.
And our guys are really laid back. And yes, Ben is getting $5,000 to $10,000 worth of free advertisement, mm-hmm. but he's also getting $5,000 to $10,000. I don't know what he was getting from those guys. I don't know what Ben was charging back in those. It's only been about 3 or 4 years since that happened.
Right.
But we haven't been able to go. And Ben thought I was the guy that was mad. So I wasn't. But our owner and producer was.
Yeah. So. Well, listen, we've kept you almost an hour and a half. So tell us. We'll start.
Really? Well, most of it's golf. Most of it's golf and tennis.
That's okay. Only a little bit of it was. It's January, end of January. What hunting trips do we have the rest of the way?
I came up here, I almost begged Shane, because, at my age, I want to hunt as much as I can. So I'm done hunting. I'm going to hunt here for 3 days, and I'm done hunting until September 1.
That's it. So this is it.
And I do want to say one thing about being old.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, have you ever heard the expression, they don't know what they don't know?
Yeah.
Okay. I say this about some of my young hunters that I've started out. You don't know what you don't know. And then, because I'm going to tell you, when I was 30, 40, even 50, I thought nobody knew more about waterfowl hunting than me. Now I'm 77, and I'm going to tell you something. I still don't know what I don't know. I mean, you every time you think you've got it, even the big giant honkers, they will even mess you up. I say they don't break the rules, and by and large they don't, but sometimes they do, and you just say, how can that possibly happen? Well, if I knew all those answers, I probably wouldn't be just doing a little TV show. But I've enjoyed every bit of this little conversation. You guys make it easy also.
Well,
So,
thank you very much.
That's all I need to say.
I take that. That's a very big compliment coming from a man like you that's been around this industry for a long time. You are 100% correct. You don't know what you don't know. And I mean, waterfowl, it's funny because everything is so cyclical in the waterfowl world. And a lot of these young pups, right now silhouettes are popular. Dive Bomb and companies like them have done an incredible job marketing the silhouette again. And now all these young guys think that they've got this magic tool in the silhouettes. Well, I mean, silhouettes are not new. And, but they acted, when Dive Bomb first hit the market, a lot of these young guys, they couldn't believe it. And it's just like, dude, a little bit of history and you'll realize these have been around a long, long time. But they don't know what they don't know.
I'll give you, that's correct. I'll give you one more Tim Grounds story. Do you remember the company called Outlaw?
Yes.
Yeah.
Jeff got sued by him.
Huh?
I got sued by them.
Jeff got sued.
You do remember them?
Yeah, Jeff.
Yeah, I got sued because I didn't use their stuff.
Jeff got put in a lawsuit with them.
Okay. Outlaw came out with these multicolored, beautiful silhouettes, and I decided, well, I had a duck club at the time, and we all chipped in. We bought 6 or 7 for when we couldn't drive in, and da-da-da-da. And so I was setting silhouettes, and I couldn't finish a damn goose. I couldn't finish them. Mm-hmm. So I called Grounds, and I said, Grounds, tell me how to finish these damn geese with these silhouettes. I said, I'm not sure I ever did it when I was a little kid, and I'm sure as hell not doing it now. Tell me how I'm supposed to do this with these silhouettes. He said, join the club. I can't finish them.
Right. I
said, what? He said, hell no, I can't finish them either. He said, if they're on top of you, they see nothing, which is true. And so the silhouette thing, and these kids, now it's really easy. Oh, heck, I can put out 200 silhouettes and
right.
we're good. Well, not so good. When Dive Bomb first came out, I said, okay, I'll try this. But when I did it by myself because I wasn't going to screw anybody else's hunt up. And the only time I use silhouettes now is I use them with full bodies just to fill out a spread.
You have to, like you said, though, like if they get over the top, it can be tricky. But the way we run so many decoys, we'll do 50 dozen Dive Bomb silhouettes, and no matter where the bird is over you, he can see decoys. So that's kind of the way that we figured it out. Big, wide spreads.
I can't even begin to tell you guys. Hello?
Yes, sir.
Did I lose you?
Nope, we're still here.
Okay, okay, but my Bluetooth went out, so I can't even begin to tell you. The biggest spread I've ever set in Michigan was 20 6 dozen, I think, was the biggest spread I ever. Hell, you guys start out with 50 dozen, so I can't
Right.
even relate to what you guys do.
Yeah.
So,
Well, listen, Bruce, this has been a pleasure talking to you. Good luck the rest of your time there with SEMO. Kick Kyle in the nuts and tell him that I'll see him in Mexico in a couple short weeks. And take care of yourself. And it's been a pleasure talking to you, my friend.
right back at you.
Thank you, Bruce. God bless you, my friend, and have a great day.
Bye-bye.
You bet. See ya.
Bruce Horrell.
If he would have told me he finished 5th in the Heisman voting, I would have just golf, tennis, basketball.
Tennis, basketball. His brother's a dean at Harvard.
Yeah, I mean, well, my parents raised some losers. That's what I'm thinking.
We got nothing.
Yeah.
I couldn't even, I don't know. I mean, the man has seen and done it all. But
Yep.
that's, I mean,
Interesting guy.
This is a guy that's going to, when he finally does retire, he will be able to look back at everything that he's done. And I mean,
He's had a lot.
you're here for a short time.
Yep.
So
Make the most of it.
make the most of it. And I think that's what Bruce is doing.
Do
So
stuff you enjoy doing, figure a way to make a living doing it, and enjoy life. Life is way too short not to have a good time. We appreciate y'all for listening to us.
I'll tell you what, though, it has been, I did not realize. So for the first half of this podcast, we were phone only. The last 2 guests that we've had, I've not been able to see them talk.
Makes a difference, don't it?
Oh, it fucks me up so bad because I don't know when you don't see them, and you can see the guest up here, but they can't see you. But like you can, even when it's on Skype, so much easier because I can read their body language to know when they're done talking, and then I can come in with a question. But I mean, that's the only way we could do these, so I'm not gonna turn them down.
If you come to Nashville to Turkey, come see me. I'll be at the Boss booth. They will be selling Boss Tom there.
Get it. You're gonna need it for turkey season. My goodness, what else do you need?
Shin's going to be there.
Shin
Lucky
will be
Duck
there.
I bet.
You hunt rain. The Shin has those rubber boots that are really, really nice.
Pacific's going to be there.
Pacific's got all their calls, their slate calls, their mouth calls. I mean, there's a bunch of things out there that turkey season is right here. And I hope that this turkey season out here at the Big Honker Lodge is a lot better than last turkey
I wish
season.
you were going to Nashville with us.
I can't, Jeff.
No.
Schedule one.
Me and you're going to be together 5 days in February. I counted the other day.
That's it?
That's it. The whole month. You're gone. I'm gone. You're gone. I'm gone.
That can't be right.
No, it's pretty damn close to it.
That can't be right.
Look it up on the calendar. It's very, very close.
I will when we get out of here.
It's about 5 days. 2 Mondays and Tuesdays, and then...
But the good thing is there's only 28 days in February, so...
Yeah, it's my birthday month, so everybody make sure you send me a gift.
You don't have a birthday this year.
Nope, don't. Leap year, baby.
Go ahead and because a lot of people don't know the outlaw story. Go ahead and tell it before we get out of here.
I was a young man.
Fresh in business.
About my second year in, had no clue what I was doing. Thought I did. Killed a lot of birds. Anyways, we had hunted over some outlaw decoys and some real geese silhouettes. A guy worked for me from Louisiana, and he had 10 dozen of them.
Mm-hmm.
And he brung them down, and they were really good and easy to use. So that off season, I went to this little bank over here. If it wasn't for a small town bank, we'd have never started our business. Thank
Right.
God for them.
Right.
And we need those in the world. We don't have them anymore. If things big bank. But anyways, they loaned us some money, and I bought $7,000 worth of outlaw decoys. Or not outlaw decoys, out of real geese. Here I'm starting this whole thing of real geese decoys. Well, I had talked to outlaw and I'd talked to real geese, and I decided to go with Darrell Wise and the real geese decoys. I thought it was a better product, and so I bought those. Well, Jim Kripe, who was the owner of Outlaw, called me up on a Sunday afternoon. I'll never forget this.
Called you here or had your personal phone number?
Called me at the house.
Got your personal number.
And wanted to know what it was going to take for me to be business to buy from them. And I told him we were an up and coming outfitter. We were the Cadillac Creek of the outfall. We had all the small Canadas here, and we were just starting to get a lot of attention. And I told him, I said, I'm going with real geese. And he said, well, how are you going to feel when the sheriff comes and takes them all from you? I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, well, the sheriff's going to come because we're going to sue you for not using our decoys because they was having a patent and copyright deal they were fighting between the two of them.
Did they look similar, or was it just the technology?
It was the same
stake,
technology.
wooden
I
stake,
think
and
it was a wooden stake and a plastic type decoy that had, I forgot what they called it. There was a name for it, the way digital processing, however they did the artwork on it. Anyways, he's one of the reasons I didn't want to go to outlaw.
Oh, really?
He was a horse's rear.
I asked.
And so he threatened to sue me. And he said, I'm going to sue you. I said, well, let me tell you something. I said, I drive a brand new Z71 pickup. Is Ford going to sue me because I don't drive a Chevy?
Right.
I mean, is Ford going to sue me because I don't drive one of their deals? He said, well, the sheriff's going to come pick your decoys up. I said, well, you don't know my sheriff very well. He ain't going to pick up shit. So I used them. And then the next spring went to the Ducks event. Used to be at Memphis, and it was called the Great Outdoors or something. And we were there, and he come walking up, and he's got this big-ass cowboy hat on. I'll never forget this. And he walked up to me, and he was trying to be an asshole, but he was trying to be nice. And I told him, I said, boy, Jim, I said, you need 2 of those hats. You think so? I said, yeah, I wanted to shit in and wanted to cover it up with. He come back with a cap on about 5 minutes later. And that was my last conversation I ever had with him, I think. But it was going to sue me because I didn't buy his decoys. And Real Geese won the lawsuit, I believe.
And by God, they were just going to come pick those decoys up.
Yeah, and then what really pissed me off, though, was they used to send a propaganda deal out. And it was a color, it was a catalog.
Mm-hmm.
And they would have all these testimonials from people in there. And there was a fucking testimonial from me in the Outlaw magazine.
Oh, really?
Yeah, about how I was, here's an order for 100 dozen silhouettes, and we also want the motion kits that go with them and shit. Boy, I was fucking pissed.
Did you call him?
I did call him. And I called him a few things but a white man.
What'd he say?
Nothing. He was fucking like, hey, that's the way they did shit. They did that all the time on stuff.
All I see are Real Geese here.
They had a boat that they had out, and some hunters died in a boating accident, and instead of just being sad that the people died, he had to make it out that it wasn't his boat that didn't kill him. And so it was just shit like that all the time.
That might be outlaw. I can't really tell.
But their decoys, I'm sure, were pretty good. We just went with Real Geese, and we went with Real Geese until we went to Die Bomb. And Real Geese makes a good product, and I don't have nothing bad to say about them at all. And I chose them over Outlaw, but it was just a big freaking mess. And
were you sassy with the guy?
What do you think?
I'm going to assume so.
Yeah, I'm not.
How long did this conversation last?
Oh, he called me probably 4 different times. He really wanted my business.
But was he whenever? No, I mean, how long did the conversation that he was going to sue you? How long did that carry on?
Until I probably didn't go fuck himself.
Pretty quick to nip it in the bud.
I wasn't going to put up with none of his shit in person or on the phone.
And then
laughed.
What was he doing whenever you said he was being a dick at this show?
Oh, he was just trying to be a smart ass, wanting me to buy some decoys from him, and just being a typical salesman guy. He wasn't really he was trying to butter up and be and just it bothered me.
How do you butter up after you've told a guy that you're going to send the sheriff to pick up all of his fucking decoys?
You never knew this guy, but it was really, Mom had to muzzle me probably lots of times when I was younger. I wasn't going to put up with a lot of shit off anybody, or I was going to stand. I'm too stupid to back down from anybody, and he just was in a horse's rear about the whole thing. But yeah, he threatened to going to sue me, and the sheriff's going to come pick up my decoys on this lawsuit. And I told him to go fuck himself.
What a time to be alive.
But that was a big fight between them and Real Geese, and then
I'd like to know exactly what it was all about, because
it was the imaging way that they did it was Ryan Fox could probably tell you exactly the process that they used, but they would use some kind of
like silk screen
3D imaging, and they put it on these decoys, and they would print them, laser print them or something. I don't know. And then, but what happened was when this all first started, they were both competing and doing the same thing. And Real Geese, Darrell Wise took Matt Sullivan and, what's the big guy from Nebraska that got it for us?
Winnicky,
Ron.
Blake's guy.
Ron, Matt. I still want a Winnicky call. If anybody's got one, an old wooden call, I'd like to have one of the Ganderlanders.
Dave Reese sent you one.
Where's it at?
He sent it to you whenever he sent me that flag. I think it might be in your case already. I think we're ready to put it up.
Okay. Anyways,
yeah.
Ron and Matt went because Brian couldn't go, and I can't remember. Maybe Brian might have went to Mexico. But anyways, he was working for me that summer. But anyways, they went to Canada and they filmed Darrell and the Wise Men, and it's an old VHS tape you can buy. But that was Real Geese kind of put it back on Outlaw at the time.
Right.
But it was a big battle between the two companies for a long time, and I need to get Craig Mintz on here and have him, because he owns Real Geese now, and ask him what all it was about.
He might not know.
He probably knows, but it was a license and branding or marketing type deal was the difference between them. Is Outlaw still in the business?
I have no idea. I don't know.
But anyways, that was years and years ago. That was 25 years ago, probably.
I don't
25 years ago.
See a website, but it acts like you can get them right there. Maybe they are still in business.
That was a
40.
Outlaw flooded the market with merchandise all at once, and they lost this lawsuit, and they just kind of disappeared.
Right. I can't. It acts like you can get 6 for $140. I don't know if this is like Swap Shop and somebody is selling
old Outlaw decoys, or
if this is new. But there's definitely no website for Outlaw decoys that I've found.
They even come out with a coyote silhouette, and I believe they were. I don't know what all happened on it. Someone said Jim's son is still around, supposed to be a real nice guy.
Right.
But it was just a mess. But I mean, I didn't do anything other than buy some decoys from Real Geese.
Right. I
called both companies, and I was trying to get the best deal I could for me, is what I was trying to do. And I liked, Real Geese made me a better deal. And I can't remember what Daryl gave me, what kind of deal he made me. It's been so long ago. And matter of fact, I was looking through an old, I keep spirals.
Mm-hmm.
I've got spirals that go all the way back to the mid-90s, and I've gotten the guys' names. When you call me, I write down your name, your phone number, blah, 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 and I put everything in a spiral. Everybody that calls and leave me a message, and I saw a message from Daryl Wise for me to call him and his phone number.
Really?
Yeah, that I had wrote down I'd copied off the answer machine, and that had to been, 95, 96.
I'm going to have to go here. They're canceling school early.
Are they?
Yep. So 1:00. I mean, I got an hour, but we need to start wrapping up. Yeah, I mean, that was a wild time in the waterfowl world.
Yeah, it was, and it's
kind of when everything became commercialized. Well, I guess it's just like anything in America. Everything started to become.
We were
these companies started popping up in the 90s. If you look at just kind of the history of the world,
we were one of the first big time outfitters in America for waterfowl. Now historically there was places that did the Eastern Shore of Maryland, the Texas Prairie. Those guys were hunting before we were.
Mm-hmm.
There was the guys in the Panhandle. A couple of them were hunting before we were, but we were the first really big hunting operation in the Midwest.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not tooting my horn. That is a fact. And we were at the right place at the right time. I could not start my business today and be in the same situation we did. We have no money or anything.
Just with the banking laws?
Well, I'm just telling you that a poor kid is not going to make it in this business starting out. It's going to be really hard, because we went from real little to real big within 2 years.
I don't know how a poor kid does anything.
No, I don't either. And I wouldn't have made it if it wouldn't have been for a banker that took a chance on us too.
Right.
And some help from some good people. We had some really good friends that really helped us a bunch. I saw a deal. I saw it was a post today, and someone had talked about, people out there won't spend $500 with their friend, but they'll spend $3,000 with someone they don't know that does the same thing their friend does,
or demand a refund,
and they want their friend to give them a better deal.
Right.
And they says you'll find out in life as you get older that some of your best friends are going to be people that don't try to that do business with you, but you meet them as a client.
Mm-hmm.
And I have found that to be very true. Some of my best friends now are my clients.
Right.
That I've gotten to be friends with. And I try to do business with people that do business with me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a good policy for everybody. But the Outlaw deal, that was just wild times back in the day. I can still see him in that fucking cowboy hat.
Looked like a dickhead.
That look on his face when I told him that. he went from big smiles. Plus your mom was 27 years old and she looked like she was a 10. And so I'm sure he was trying to impress her.
Right.
Didn't work.
Didn't work, homeboy.
No, and then one of the guys, I'll never forget this too. Matt Sullivan was there. I met Fred Zink at that show. And Matt come walking up, and a guy, and I'm not going to mention his name, is an outfitter on the Texas coast and was real famous at this time. And he made a smart-ass remark about us because all we shot was little geese because we was a big nail or a big thorn in the side of all them outfitters in South Texas. Because my motto, or I used to tell people all the time, if you come here, you'll never go to South Texas again.
Right.
And it's true. We did. We took lots of people from there. And anyways, he made a comment to Matt Sullivan. He said, well, y'all just shoot those little geese. Matt said, well, if you can kill 5 of them fuckers, I don't think they really care how big they are.
You don't want to get into a war of words with Matt Sullivan.
No, he's a funny little bastard.
Like, you're going to lose that.
But he did. He told that guy that, and I'll never forget that.
Shoot 5 of them, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, they don't care how big they are. If they shoot 5 of them, go down there and lay on your back in the mud and the fire ants and kill one maybe.
I remember the Pass Shooting Sucks shirt
Yep.
that we had.
Yep.
Wear that around the hunting show and walk a little bit slower whenever you get in front of the guys on the coast. I can remember that vividly as a child.
I wonder how many outfitters are still left in the Eagle Lake area. I went to me and Tony went to Houston a couple of times for the Texas Trophy Hunters, which before the internet, that was the big thing to go to. And while we were there, I'll bet you honestly around 96 and 97, I'll bet there was 50 to 100 different outfitters on the Eagle Lake.
Right. I'm counting a couple. One.
Bobby Hill, Third Coast Outfitters. He was a really nice guy. He passed away of cancer a long time ago. And I think his business is still actually was open at one time.
There's still a couple down there.
But it used to be, I mean, it was the goose hunting capital of the world at the time.
Yeah.
And it just, all the food's gone away.
I wonder if this guy's still in.
Larry Gore. I'll be dang.
I don't know if he is.
That might be somebody just using the name.
He might have bought it. It acts like he is. Book a Hunt. Yeah. Still blowing and going. Looks like they got cranes down there.
Been around a long time. That's him.
He's been around just as much as you have, hasn't he?
Oh, he was business way before I was.
Let's see. This will tell us. Oh, maybe it won't tell us.
I don't know if that's Larry Gore. Maybe I was using that name.
Yeah,
Isaac Gore. That's
Isaac's the son, maybe.
I don't have. It may not even be kin. But Larry was around way before I was. I've never met Larry Gore.
Even at all the hunting shows?
I don't think he ever even. James Prince ran it back in the day.
Oh,
but they some friends of mine. I hunted with him though. Some friends of mine in the early '90s had a season lease from them. They would season lease stuff. There were some guys from Dallas had a season lease, and we would go down there and hunt. And you'd go to this trailer at night. I'll never forget this. You go to a trailer at nighttime, and they'd sign you the field that you could hunt. They had a big board and stuff, and they had these people going in and out. Looking back at that right now, if you were on a season lease and he was running 15 guided trips a day, you think you were getting one of the top 15 fields to hunt?
Probably not.
No. I don't remember shooting. I went down there 3 or 4 times. My dad loved to go down there because they had an all-you-could-eat Cajun food restaurant at the hotel right there. And I wish I could remember the name of that old hotel in Eagle Lake.
He sold on it. Sold them.
And we go. That's when Dad almost got his ass whooped by that truck driver.
Was going down to Eagle Lake.
Yep. Fall out, big boy. My fucker's about 6'8".
Just kept on falling.
Told Tony, I said, Dad's fixing to get his ass whooped. All right, let's jump off here. They just ring the dinner bell. Thank y'all for listening to us. God bless y'all. What we got? Trevor and Alex next week on from Pacific.
Yeah, we got a couple different things that we're working on next week. So
can you tell them what you got lined up? Because I'm excited about this one.
Let me check my email and see real quick. It must be snowing its ass off out there. For them to cancel school.
The roads were getting slushy coming to the lodge earlier.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think it was really that bad. The radar just is snowing, but it looks like it's going to be done pretty quick.
I do not have an email confirming this yet, so I
Okay.
am going to wait on this announcement.
Oh, I'm excited.
I mean, it's not a big day, not a huge name guest or anything
It's
like
just
that.
what he
Nothing
does.
crazy, but it'll be a fun podcast.
Be very interesting and out of our pocket, so I can't wait.
Kind of. All right. Bye, everybody.
See ya. Bye.
Go look at our sponsors. Go to the Hunt Proof app and set up an account now. The Looking Glass Podcast. Go to their Patreon. Alpha Outdoor Specialties. Bangtail Whiskey. Stanfield Hunting Outfitters. Dirty Duck Coffee. Ducks Unlimited. Double T British Kennels. Lucky Duck. Shin Gear. Go check out all their cool stuff. Gundog Outdoors. Protect that four-legged hunting buddy. Pacific Calls. Dive Bomb Industries. Boss Shot Shells in Mossberg.